Hello, this is your host Akhil Navluri, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Techospace podcast series. In this podcast episode, I'm super thrilled and honored to welcome one of the most eminent and prominent industry leader pertaining to the space of IT, Mr. David Walker, and also to mention David has written a few books on IT, which we're going to talk about in this podcast session. And Mr. David Walker, as I would just like to, call out Mr. David Walker, who is based out of Boston, the United States of America, and he's the VP of Life Sciences Business at the company Quantori. So, David, it gives me an absolute pleasure to welcome you to this podcast initiative of mine. So, David, off to you. So, why don't you introduce yourself in detail to our audience and more about your company, Quantori?
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for having me today. It's delighted to be here and delighted to take part in a discussion on IT and data science. So thank you. So my name is David Walker, and for 20 years I've been working at the intersection of IT, science, and the business. I studied a master's in bioinformatics 20 years ago, and I've spent the last 20 years working with R&D organizations to help them adopt IT technology and more recently AI technology. And I've also been working with vendors, data science vendors and software vendors, helping them commercialize their technologies as well.
That's a brilliant insight, David. So, David, like as I was just talking about, so like anything more about your company, Quantori? Like, what is Quantori? Dealing with all of that, nuances from that side.
Abs, abs, ab, Absolutely. Well, as you're probably aware, and the audience is probably aware, the adoption of IT in large enterprises is challenging. It's challenging for a number of reasons. It's almost as though our iPhones work better than our technology at our companies, at our organizations. And that's for a number of reasons. The complexity of large enterprises, the complexity of research and development, whether you're finding a new baby formula, a new drug, a new whatever, is kind of very hard to develop a business in that area. So Quantori, we're a technology and consulting company. We have a high number of PhDs in biology and chemistry and data science, and we help life sciences organizations adopt advanced technology to help them accelerate research and development. Everything from cloud architectures, workflows, software that the scientists can use, right through to AI and data science. We're working on some really interesting projects applying Gen AI to target identification, how to help companies find new targets in the oncology space. So very high profile projects. And Quantori has been doing this for about 6 years now and is having incredible success. Really important to say, Akhil, that IT, success in IT, in research, what we find at Quantori is about speaking three languages. It's
Okay.
about it's about speaking AI and data science. You have to understand the models, the different types of AI, the ML. You have to understand architecture, back-end engineering, front-end engineering. You have to understand how to build applications from the ground up. And I think most importantly, you have to speak the language of the people who are using the system. If it's oncology scientists, you have to speak science. If it's a marketing department, you have to speak marketing. So
Exactly.
by speaking those three languages, you can really understand the business problem and most importantly, map IT to that business problem to develop a solution that clients enjoy using.
Absolutely. That completely, supports the point. Now, David, at the stroke of this hour, which is 4:38 p.m. IST, let's kick off with the podcast episode. All right. So, yeah. So, David, would you like to give me a timeline of your journey from the inception, like, on the areas of AI and IT?
Absolutely. So I started studying science, actually, genetics, about 22 years ago. I was really passionate about science and biology and research. And in 2023, the genome was mapped with humans. And that was a big milestone in scientific discovery. We finally knew the sequence of the genes. And for those who aren't familiar with DNA, there's four letters which are base pairs: a G, C, a T, and A. Um, and that was really the first step in understanding what DNA is and was. But the way that we are unlocking that is via IT. And it's essentially a computational problem, how to understand the genes and the genes that turn into proteins. So I studied a master's in bioinformatics about 20 years ago, which was mixing IT, data science, and science together. So I studied the fundamentals of AI back then, fundamentals of infrastructure, of software. I did some Java programming. I'm not a Java programmer now, but just that mix of science and technology. When I was studying, I realized that the biggest impact IT has is to help revolutionize businesses and make a significant impact in our world today. Is how can IT make the world a better place? How can it make people healthier? How can it cure disease? And that led me into a very fascinating career of another interest of mine, which is business. So mixing business, IT, and science together, and
Okay.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, really addressing scientific problems using IT, but from a business perspective as well. Um, so very briefly, I've worked for consulting companies, PhD consulting companies. I've worked for software companies over the past 20 years, all helping research organizations adopt IT, utilize IT to help them make research more efficient, whether it be creating new food groups, new consumer goods, or new drugs. Really, that application of IT is really important there. The second thing I've done is helped IT companies and vendors communicate what they do to clients. So that's the other side of it. I always say that clients don't buy IT, they buy the result of IT, they buy the impact of IT. What is that going to help the client do? So bridging that gap between the technology, the data science that vendors have, and the go-to-market message, speaking the client's language, is what I've done as well. So my career has really spanned from an individual contributor, a account manager, a global account manager. I've been a director. I've built commercial teams, and now I'm a vice president of Quantori, where I'm leading the AI go-to-market strategy and the commercial execution.
That's a brilliant timeline, David, for sure. Now, David, now I mean, I think in our early conversations when we and I just firstly got to know you. So, David, you just gave me a very interesting thing. So, I would just like to pitch out to you and know it more from your end because I'm pretty keen and curious to ask this. So, David, for the past 20 years, like what has it been like? Your involvement with respect to mainly specializing, helping the companies adapt the AI solutions as well as then successfully helping the vendors selling the AI solutions. Like, how are you able to balance these things out together?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question, and thank you. And it's been a fascinating journey because of the complexity. And I always say that the technology is the relatively straightforward part. And what I mean by that is we have good fundamental understanding of AI. Today, we have cloud computing, we have large data sets, we have all the tools available to us. But the adoption of AI by large businesses is anything but easy. And that's for a couple of reasons. I think in AI in particular, one of the key reasons is there are many stakeholder groups involved in AI projects, especially today with Gen AI in the hype. So an IT organization will be interested in standardized AI platforms that it can push. A data science group will be interested in what models can I use? How accurate are those models? The chief compliance officer will be worried about DeepSeek or the latest model, and will my company be leaking information onto the internet? And
Right,
the
right.
and the end user will be excited to get AI, but I speak to a lot of end users who are very worried, and they say, what happens if the AI gives me bad results? What do I do then? So it's a very complex stakeholder problem, and aligning all those stakeholders is key. And then a large part of what I do and what I've been doing for 20 years is setting expectations about the reality of AI. And it's easy to pick up the latest paper or look on LinkedIn and to think AI is a silver bullet that's going to solve all these problems. The reality is it's a tool. Especially Gen AI, it's a tool. It's suitable for certain problems, but it's not the answer to everything. So educating clients about that has been really key. And ultimately, I think in AI, clients are still working out how to use AI and where to use AI. They're looking for trusted advisors. They're looking for people who understand AI, understand their world, and can help them navigate that journey. So I've been doing that in various forms for 20 years, and it's fascinating. It's a people problem, Akil, as much of a data science problem.
That's brilliant. Now, David, for the past 20 years, as you have told me, and I've been completely acquainted with the fact that you have been helping companies sell the AI solutions. But now, when you look back at 20 years and when you look back at the things now, what is the difference that you find with respect to the AI solutions in terms of the data sets or let's say the implementation? Like, what do you exactly find with respect to the stark difference?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So the 20 years ago, AI was being utilized, but it was being utilized by niche data science groups for kind of point problems. It wasn't a well-known technology like it is today. So I was selling to data science groups, having very technical discussions, and I think today it's much more broad-ranging discussions. I'll speak to CEOs, I'll speak to VPs, I'll speak to data scientists, all about AI. As I mentioned, it's definitely a multi-stakeholder problem. I think the history of AI over the last 20 years, or the adoption of AI, has been fascinating to see. There's been a few things that have been changing. The volume of data in industry or in the world has increased tremendously. So we're producing more data now than ever. I forget the exact stats, but is it the last 2 years we've produced more data than in the entire history of the world, which is just incredible. The advent of cloud computing has made that data much more easily accessible as well. So we can access the data sets, we can access the large data sets. And then things like Gen AI and LLMs have, I think, made it easier for people to interact with AI. Before Gen AI, everything was custom built, it was a custom user interface, but now that's lowered the barrier to entry. So these worlds have kind of came together. But I just want to tell you a quick story, Akira. It's not been a smooth process. In 2010, I was working with a client, a large research organization, pharmaceutical organization, and we came up with the term data angels. And the
Okay.
company Data Angels, yeah. And we provided 6 data angels globally. And you'll smile at what they had to do. But the problem was the research units couldn't find the data, and then they needed help doing the analysis. So these data angels would go in, find the data, do the analysis. Of course, today, that data angel role is now data engineers and data scientists. It's been split out, and we realized that there are actually two different roles to solve the problem. But it kind of shows you how I think the industry and the area has evolved from data angels to data scientists. And I think it's really interesting what's going to be the next thing in 5 or 10 years' time as well. It's moving so quickly that it's very exciting to be part of.
That's a pretty interesting insight, David. Now, David, I mean, when you just told me the term data angels, I feel that, that term has been given because, because the data scientists or data engineers back then, they were like angels because they used to solve the nightmares of all the companies who were struggling with data, if I'm not wrong.
Absolutely. And back then companies had a lot of on-premise data. So they had it in, on on-premise systems. Their data science groups were not as established, and they couldn't access their data as easily as they could today. So back then it was a great solution, and the project worked really well. It was the researchers really loved these data angels who came in and solve these hard problems. Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. I think that's a good insight for a data scientist like me because I'm pursuing my masters in that course at the moment in Melbourne. And
Abs-
my fellow alumni, or let's say my fellow data scientists who are part of my batch, they would also find it very much insightful if I tell them this particular piece of news. And yeah, so David, again, you just were giving me an example where you were talking about that it was not on cloud, it was on premise. So when things were on premise, how did the data scientists gather that data, and how much time it used to take them? Like, was it through multiple devices, or was it like multiple months? Like, how were things back
mm,
then?
yeah, definitely. So you'll probably smile at this, but when things were on premise, a lot of well, step back. It's important to think of how large research organizations were founded and how old they are. So many of these large pharmaceutical companies are tens or 100 years old, and they've developed IT systems over the years. They've acquired companies as well. So they have a lot of, or they had, or still have, a lot of legacy IT systems and data silos and infrastructure. It's so the internal environment is so complex. I actually worked on a project for a large pharmaceutical company. They didn't know how many software systems and data stores they had. They did not know. So they asked us to go in and find them all. So that's how hard it is to find the data. It's I think this company in research had 290 different places where the data was stored. So you can quite easily see as a researcher or as a scientist trying to access the data is extremely hard. And also from a culture perspective, it's not uncommon to find data on people's laptops in Excel files as well. Kind of back then, data stewardship and ownership, it wasn't really mature. I used to go to companies and speak to people, and they'd say, "Well, this is my data. I own this data. I'm the scientist.
Right.
It's on my laptop, and other people aren't qualified to look at that data." So there's understanding around data ownership has been a real problem. I think it's getting better now.
Yeah.
So with the advent of AI, there's the awareness now that it's very much a data issue, data problem, and unfortunately, a lot of these roadblocks are being overcome. But finding the data back then, it's just a very manual process. It would take days and weeks to get into these systems, having to write code to
Um,
access the data as well. So it's a
yep.
very slow process.
That's pretty good. I mean, like, earlier, like how civilizations used to evolve, I feel like technology is evolving, and so is with respect to the data and the AI, all together in this world.
Absolutely, and it's really interesting how it's evolved because for many years it was deemed to be safer to have data on premise, on site. And I worked for a software vendor, kind of was it 2016 to 2020, 2022. And at the start of that, our software was on premise, but then we moved over to the cloud and we had a software as a service. That move for companies from on-premise to the cloud was very hard. Kind of smile today because cloud technology, cloud storage and SaaS vendors are everywhere and everybody is almost cloud first. But back then, there was a real trepidation and fear about the security of data in the cloud. Is my data safe? Who's going to read it? Are my competitors going to read it? Of course, we used to say Amazon is much more secure than your on-premise data centers. The data, Amazon knows how to do security much better than you do.
Absolutely.
But companies were worried. So the move to the cloud really, once organizations realized the benefit of that, it really opened up the access to data much more easily to access, much easier to access, and really helped, I think, drive use of data science as well.
That's a brilliant thing, David. Now, David, earlier, like at the start of the conversation, you were giving a complete insight, or let's say about a complete worldview about your company, Quantori. Now, if I would just like to ask you this, David, like, would you like to give an insight to our listeners on your tenure of being the VP of life sciences business at your company, Quantori, which we were just talking about?
Absolutely. So I came to Quantori with a deep background in data science and IT, and working with R&D companies. And Quantori is an absolutely great place to be, and really enjoying my tenure there. So as I mentioned, Quantori is a technology and consulting company. We have data scientists and engineers, and we work with the world's largest R&D organizations to help them improve research. And really, we say is AI-driven research and development. How can organizations improve the time to market? And that's so important. If an organization is developing a new drug, for example, patients are waiting. Patients are out there, and they need that drug. So we're very proud at Quantori of the work that we do, and very proud of the collaborations that we've built with research companies. Um, Part of my job is to help Quantori with the AI go-to-market strategy. I mentioned bridging the gap between the technology and the business case, speaking the science and speaking the business, and I help Quantori do that. Another part is to help clients be successful using AI technology. And there's really two aspects to that. Helping bring the best people from Quantori forward to our clients. So the right scientists, the right data scientists, but helping clients navigate that uncertainty and educate them about what AI really is and what it can do. So playing that trusted advisor to clients as well. And Quantori, we're having a lot of success. It's really proud to say that we're beating much larger companies for these AI projects because of our deep domain expertise and skill, and our proven ability to deliver as well. So we're getting amazing traction in the industry, and very proud to be part of that.
That's awesome to know. I mean, David, then hats off to your company, who's coming up with, all these cutting edge projects, if I can just, so to say that. Now, David, you just told me like, Quantori has a plethora of data scientists. Let's say a data scientist is, doing a particular, let's say, part of the project. If a data scientist is a little bit hesitant, like what is that kind of a pep talk that you give to a data scientist that, you can rock the show and, you can actually do the best to meet the client's expectations? Like, what do you exactly tell them?
Absolutely. So I think there's a couple of aspects to that. So all of our data scientists are very curious by nature. So they're people who, and I think that's so important. Okay, so data science is changing quickly. And it will continue to change. So we look for people who are inquisitive, like to learn, really like to keep up to date with the latest techniques. So they're always kind of learning, which kind of helps. Um, we have a very kind of open environment at Quantori. It's almost like we're a commercial organization, but behind the scenes, it feels like a research environment. Everybody's communicating, sharing experiences, sharing problems, and learning. So there's a deep bench of expertise here. Um, but I think the important part on projects is not every AI project or data science project will give the results that you think it will do. And this is what we talk to clients about. Applying AI or data science is not a silver bullet. And it's, we may get the answer we're looking for and we may not. So on actual projects, really keeping clients' expectations in the right place, involving data scientists to see what insight they can get from the data, doing it in a very kind of controlled, planned way means that everybody's expectations are aligned and keeping everybody informed about the progress. And that's really important. I think that's where building the trust comes in with clients. I think they doing AI and data science projects, it has to be a transparent process. It's hard to do. It's not this silver bullet. And when clients see that, they understand. And they're, okay, so this is what's happening. These are the challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are the challenges we're having. We'll talk to clients and say, this stage of the project is really hard, and we're having challenges here. But this is what we're doing. So very much, I think the term is, okay, it's co-creation with
Co-creation,
clients.
exactly. Yeah.
Co-creation. It's not developing something behind the scenes and then bringing it to the client. Developing it with the client and keeping the channels of communication open.
That's brilliant, David. Now, David, when a data scientist works on a particular, let's say, a research, or not exactly a research, collecting the data and training the models or doing a machine learning kind of thing, like what is the backend technology that they use? Is it like with respect to R programming, or is it only confined to Python or let's say Java? Like what exactly goes on in the backend?
Yeah, sure. A lot of R and a lot of Python. Absolutely. So Quantori, we have partnerships with AWS and Databricks, and we're seeing a kind of movement in enterprise companies over to platforms, to kind of, yeah, platforms across research and development, normally driven by the IT organization. So as organizations get mature, they want to standardize the AI across the organization. So utilizing Amazon's Bedrock technology is kind of key, and the Databricks as well.
That's pretty insightful, David. Now, David, the other day, let's say, on LinkedIn also, I've just seen it and I was pretty curious to know that. And I felt like, David, I need to ask David, on the podcast session itself. So, David, would you like to give me a spotlight, or let's say, give a background about the book, let's say, which you have authored, which is titled The Mastering AI Sales and Essential Knowledge for B2B Professionals. Like, what went into the making of that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm glad you answered that. I'm glad you asked that question, Akhil. So the book really is aimed at founders and consultants and people in commercial roles, and really helping them with many of the challenges that we discussed over the course of this conversation. When I moved from a PhD consulting company to a product company, and ultimately a SaaS company, I realized that the SaaS way of engaging with clients, the commercial approach, is very different to a consulting approach. And selling SaaS products and software products is very different to selling AI. Some of the things we've talked about on AI projects is that the client needs educating and help building a team internally. They often need help with data and infrastructure and understanding what's hype in AI and what's not hype in AI. And there's often some nervousness, especially today with Gen AI. Are we using it in the right place? All of
Exactly.
those all of those things require a very consultative, educational approach, and an approach built on credibility, trust as well. And that's very different to typical software IT approaches, where the problem is often more defined, the solution is more defined. So really enjoyed writing the book, and it really blends my experience from 20 years on selling data science into actionable insights that people can take. It covers establishing credibility, how to become a thought leader in the AI space, and how to communicate that. It covers how to work with the multiple stakeholder groups, conversations with the compliance legal team are very different to the conversations with the data science team, how to bridge those gaps. It also covers how to work with clients to put in place consulting projects, how to sell AI products, and then it looks at the future of this field and where will the AI commercialization rules go in the future. So delighted to say I've had a fantastic response for the authoring the book. I think there's been, up until now, there's been a gap in the market. There's been no book
Mhm.
that really ties together these business, commercial AI aspects. So absolutely, really happy to have the chance and opportunity to publish that book.
Amazing, amazing, David. Now, David, I know when I'm going to see the book and I'm going to read and have my hands on, reading like reading about things, I'll definitely get to know about this. That what were the differences that you have found, working in a PhD company to that of, let's say a SaaS company. So before I actually explore that, David, I just want to hear it from you. Like, what were the key differences on that?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. So, um, working if we start with working on in a SaaS company, that's probably the easiest. Then we'll go to working in a PhD consulting company. So working in a typical product company, it's very product focused, of course, and it talks about the problems that the company can solve with that product. So it's go to market messaging and the story it tells to clients is typically one story. It's typically we have a product that looks like this and it solves these problems for you. If you purchase the product, you'll have these benefits and there's these financial benefits. And there's you can demo the product and you can see the product as well. I'm simplifying it. It's
All
much
right.
more
Okay.
complex, but
Yeah.
but essentially you have something. So the typically account teams and people in commercial roles are very good at talking about that product and the problems it solves. They're extremely good about that. Um, but coming to a PhD consulting company, you're often working on the very cutting edge of technology. So you're talking about DeepSeek, you're talking about multi-agent approaches, you're talking about technology that hasn't that is still being created. And I say that because a product company, it takes time for a product company to implement AI into its product. It's normally 6 months, or maybe it's a bit quicker, but 6 to 12 months. Consulting companies can build the latest thing today. So you're really on the cutting edge of technology. And the other difference between consulting companies is that typically you don't have something pre-built. You're not going to clients saying, "This is what I have. This is a problem it solves." You're going to clients and saying, what is the most challenging problem you have? What are you really struggling with? What would make the most impact for you if we were to solve that with technology today?" So on the consulting side, you're educating, you're asking a lot of questions, you're understanding, you're building trust, and then often you're co-creating solutions, you're building them together. Solutions that haven't been built before. Really cutting edge solutions. So it's very, very exciting. And the book
Indeed. Yeah.
really explores both of those worlds. But what it concludes is that actually you need to blend both approaches with AI. And the reason is that it's moving fast, it's cutting edge. You need to use the latest models, you need to use the latest tools, but you need to deliver value quickly. You need to build that product quickly. You need to hand solutions over that work quickly as well. So combining a consultative approach with that product mindset of education, providing
Right.
tools, you can get quick wins. It's really fascinating in AI at the moment. I go into clients and they say, "This is the problem. How quickly can we have the solution?" Our CEO is saying, "We need to transform the business with AI. We need to do it quickly. We need to move quickly." So really, my book is about blending both approaches and then
Okay.
helping commercial people execute quickly, companies move quickly, which is tremendous benefit. I'm a big believer applying these data science techniques to industry. I think it's going to really is solving some big problems. So it's all about speed.
Awesome, awesome, David. That's pretty good to know, David. Now, heading on for the, the interesting one, which I would like to ask, it's about the initiation kind of a thing. Now, David, like what were the kind of impactful initiatives that were taken by you with respect to, let's say, cross-functional leadership and scaling and building the commercial teams? Like, what exactly went on with that?
Absolutely. So there's really two aspects to it. The first I'll talk about is the kind of commercial teams that work with our clients, so leading that commercial team. And I mentioned at the start of our conversation that speaking the different languages is so important. And Quantori, we won a large Gen AI project in the oncology space for a large pharmaceutical company, and we beat two very well-known consulting names, two global companies whose names are very, very large. We
Okay.
beat them. We beat them, and we were the selected vendor.
All right.
Amazing, amazing job. And the client came back and said there was something about you, Quantori. The expertise you brought to those conversations, and you really understood what I wanted to do. And when I was leading that team, I had a PhD in oncology join the team. He spoke genetics, he spoke oncology. I had a PhD data scientist in the team. I had an architect. I had a head of data science, somebody who'd built these Gen AI applications before, and our chief scientific officer also met with the client as well. So that team that helped reassure the client we were the vendor, it was many different people with many different roles. And that's something that's so fascinating about AI, is speaking those different language and bridging those different gaps is really key. For the more commercial teams, I'm a big believer in everybody's in the same boat, and a rising tide lifts everybody up. And I've had a lot of success building strong commercial teams where really we're working as a team. And the things we're talking about from a commercial execution are really hard. It's really challenging. We talked about AI that's moving quickly, the technology is moving quickly. The economy changes quickly as well, especially in America at the moment. And organizations change quickly as well, what they want to do or what the research organization is doing as well. And the competition is really good and really intense. There's a lot of interest in AI. A lot of vendors will say they do AI as well. So to be successful in this area as a consulting company or a technology company, you really have to have your eye on all of these different things and evolve and keep on learning. And the best people in this area and the best teams that I've worked with constantly learn and just enjoy that innovation and that new and that it's exciting and that pace, but constantly learning is key. So I think ultimately it's commercial success in this area, speaking multiple languages, and the ability to learn as well. And I think the commercial teams with those attributes are well positioned to be successful.
That's a brilliant one, David. David, just a minute. I have to, just charge my laptop so we can just keep it on. Just a minute. Okay, so a little bit of, as I mean, my laptop is just losing charge, so I'll just keep my laptop on charge, and then yeah, we can just edit this one off. No problem.
Sure.
Yeah. So now, David, like, you were just giving me the examples of, your company having the projects of, pharmaceutical companies, again, with respect to, let's say, consulting companies. David, did that ever occur to you that, you would like to, invest in something like a motor trade, not motor trade exactly, like motorsport, or let's say, I mean, what do I say, like famous car companies, and providing AI solutions for that? Did that thought, ever cross you, in your mind?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that, Akhil. So the first company I worked for when I came out of my master's was called Tesla, and they were based in Oxford, the UK, and they had They're consultants with PhDs from Cambridge University, Oxford, and MIT. And when I worked for that company twice, but some of the projects they did were just tremendous. So in Formula One motor racing, they
Okay.
worked for they worked for one of the racing teams, and they
Hmm.
worked looking at the acoustics of the other race cars, and they were working out using data science what gear the cars were in at each stage of the racetrack, depending on the acoustics coming from the car. So that intelligence could give the Formula One team we were working for competitive intelligence. It could tell them what gears the cars were in, and they could look at the fastest cars. But the problems that we solved with AI were just tremendous. Working in the transportation industry, oil tankers that are traveling the globe, we worked with a paint coating company to develop a frictionless coat of paint that could be put on oil tankers to
Oh, wow.
reduce friction through through the ocean, saving a lot of carbon footprint and reducing gas. A couple of other interesting projects that I think you'd enjoy, Akil. One was working in the space and defense industry, looking at battleship radar. So the
Oh my God.
battleship radar, how can you tell the difference between a flock of birds and a missile that's coming into the battleship? You have to be quite sure that it's a missile and not a flock of birds. Um, so there's some really fascinating data science problems out there across multiple industries. And I think for anybody studying data science at this moment in time, it's just a fascinating world to come out into, because
Yeah.
whatever your personal interest is, if you're interested in motor racing or drug discovery or finding new foods or what have you, I think data science will play such a large part in those industries that you'll be well positioned to work in the industry that you want to work in.
That's a pretty interesting one. So, David, you just told me that, it was into Formula One, then, into battleships. So, David, is there any opportunity where you want to explore the space of, let's say, rail engines, or let's say, bullet trains, somewhere in Japan, or let's say Shinkansen train? Is there a plan of, going to that space all the way?
So it's interesting you mentioned transportation. We at Acela, we did a project on predictive maintenance on trains. Look, look, so looking at real-time information on the components of trains and how they were performing in real time. And the idea was rather than performing maintenance on a train when it breaks down, why not perform predictive maintenance? So, can you use sensors and acoustics and data coming off the train in real time and predict when it's going to break down? Predict when a component is going to fail, so then you can pull it in for service ahead of time and do that analysis ahead of time. So predictive maintenance is a huge area, and we did that for a transportation network for train network as well.
That's brilliant, David. David, I just personally feel like, I should just come to Quantori company, to your company once, and, do an interview with all the people, especially, with you again, with the data scientists, the data engineers. And I would like to know more about them, like what exactly went when they created this, like something like an, I'm a person who really finds the anecdotes, or let's say, personal stories very much, close and interesting. I
Mhm.
read books about that. I read about a sports person, but I feel that, a tech person also has, his voice to be heard, with respect to a book that can be thought about it. So probably, I'm just thinking that in the future, but definitely I would definitely land up to Quantori and have that thing, try, coming up with for sure.
I'd be happy to introduce you, Akil. There's some amazing data scientists here, and some people who are really at the cutting edge of data science in applying it to real world problems. So we'd be happy to talk about some of the details of those. Absolutely.
Brilliant, brilliant, David. Now, David, like what was your drive to, venture into the space of, writing books especially only on AI? Like why only on AI? And like what exactly, brought you towards, authoring books and, stuff? Like how did that come up?
Abs- Absolutely. There's kind of a few reasons why I wrote the book, Akil, and kind of one is that there really was and there is nothing out there that addresses this need. So AI has been around for a long, long time, and companies have been working with data science for a long time, but it's been very niche. And in the commercial world of commercial execution, business to business sales, there's a few very good books over the years, but they're more generic. They're more, this is what you do when selling AI, selling IT applications or just IT in general. There's nothing for AI. Um, the kind of second piece is that I see a lot of people struggling with the things we talked about. It's not the kind of thing that you're taught at college. It's not the kind of thing you're taught at your company as well. The things we're talking about working with clients, helping them navigate the complexities, it's the kind of things learned by experience. And experiences, you have successes, you have failures. I've had a lot of successes and a lot of failures. So I thought, can I put words down, write a book, and help other people as well navigate the challenges that
Exactly.
I've navigated. And maybe if I help them not make as many mistakes as me, then that will be great as well.
Yeah,
And then the final reason, okay, is that I think I think our clients really deserve better. And
exactly.
what I mean by that is data science, it can have such a amazing impact, a huge impact on a lot of the things that we do today. And I spoke with a head of data science at a large company, and I said to him, "Tell me, what are other commercial people like? You speak to a lot of vendors out there." And he said, "People will come in, they'll try and sell me a product. It's Chat GTP with a wrapper, and they won't listen to me, and they'll try and push me onto the next stage. They'll try and
Yeah,
push me to buy."
yeah,
And he said, "I can see straight through it. I mean, this person has a PhD in data science." He says, it's not what I need. And if I can help organizations be more effective in communicating to clients, then that's great. If I can help clients have a better experience, have a better experience with vendors, and that's amazing as well. So those were the reasons. Those were the reasons for writing the book, and I have a second book planned as well.
okay.
Okay. Yes. So the first book was really about all the things we've been talking today. Second book is about building a AI technology organization, how to build it from the
Oh,
ground up.
wow.
So yeah, so you have that idea. I want to use data science to solve this problem. So how do you build and scale the organization? Much more from a AI founder's perspective. How do you get your first clients, identify the use cases, build
All right.
credibility? So it started building the structure to that and excited. I think in the fall, in the winter, when it gets cold here in Boston, is when I'll really dive into writing that book.
That's a brilliant one, especially now it gives me a complete interest to, actually grab my hands on that particular book. And I'm really, really looking forward for that, David. Now, David, coincidentally, trust me, I mean, I did an episode with a person who's based in Spain, Valencia, and his name is also David. His name is Mr. I mean, I call him David. His name is David Roldan Martinez, and he's a person who has written books on, you know, AI with respect to personal development. And there is a David coincidence here that you are also an author who wrote books on AI, and he's also a person who has written books on AI. And it's pretty much interesting. This space is interesting. But having said that, there are certain people at the moment where people are actually misutilizing AI. So when the misutilization of AI happens, David, like what is your take on that? Do you feel that there should be a balancing act for that, or do you think that okay, people will realize it by time? Like what's your take on that?
Yeah, and thank you for asking that question, because I think it addresses a really key, key point of where we are today, and that's the hype around AI and the hype cycle. So it's almost as though everywhere you turn to is AI. I turn the radio on, they're talking about AI. Look on LinkedIn, it's AI. Open a newspaper, just read a news website. It is AI. And AI is absolutely everywhere. So there's a tremendous amount of hype around AI, and I think we're probably at the top of the hype cycle, if not moving down into the trough of disillusion. Is it? I forget what the Gartner life cycle is, but the technology gets hyped and then it kind of comes down. I think that companies are wanting to innovate, and companies are wanting to bring products to market quicker and faster. There's companies out there really who are wanting to benefit humanity and really do some amazing things. And I think it's important to realize how inefficient things are today. So, for example, a new drug will take from 12 to 15 years for,
Mm,
to develop that drug from start to end. Um,
exactly.
I think 80% of drugs that get to clinical trials fail.
Right.
So, yeah, developing drugs is very hard. And the people aspect of it, people are waiting for drugs. People, unfortunately, there's people with a disease out there with sickness, and people are dying every day. So the urgency in the industry is tremendous. We have an obligation, especially in life sciences research, to develop drugs quicker and faster to solve some of these problems. And I think the use of Gen AI and AI has people are trying to find out what works. So they're trying it in different areas. There's some hype there. There's some, hey, I hope this works. I think the reality is that we'll find the applications that do work in the next couple of years, and
Right.
then those areas will go on, and we'll have the benefits there. I don't think I think the trying AI is generally a good thing, because it's like we have to find its limitations. We have to find the use cases and where it will add the value, and we have to find where it won't add the value. And a bit of that is trial and error. So yeah, it's not always being used in the right place, and I think this is where the education is important. And again, I was speaking with a client who's heading AI within a large company, and he said things have changed. 10 years ago, he had to go to his colleagues and say, "Hey, I think you can use AI here," and they'd say, "Why?" I don't want to use AI. He says now his colleagues knock on his door and say, "Can I have a Gen AI solution for this?"
Wow.
And he said half the time they don't need Gen AI, but they read the news, they see the hype, and they think they need a Gen AI solution. So I think part of being successful with AI is people educating people who understand data science and AI,
Yep.
having those conversations and saying that maybe Gen AI isn't the best type of AI. Maybe it's a different type of AI, or
Yep.
maybe it's not AI at all. Maybe there's a and so it's having those conversations which are really important. And I think it's people like myself, people like yourself who understand the data science are really key and crucial to that.
That's pretty good, David. Now, David, starting, you were just telling about the pharmaceuticals. Do you think, David, with the help of AI, the doctors will find a cure for cancer, or let's say medicines for cancer, or heart attack, or bypass surgery? Do you think those kind of developments will come in place with respect to AI?
I think it will help, and I say that for a couple of reasons. A lot of research is very data driven, and it's making sense of data, making sense of connections. Biology is extremely complex. It's a good analogy. is when the genome was sequenced, somebody said it's like having all of the pieces of a Boeing 747 on a runway, and we have to build the airplane, but we do not have an instruction manual.
Hmm.
How do we put all those pieces together to make an airplane? Very, very hard problem, and that's biology. So AI and data science has a tremendous role to play. It's very good with information and making connections. And there's been new inventions like AlphaFold for protein design that came out 2 or 3 years ago, which are making not just small jumps in areas of drug discovery, but big jumps. They're making the ability to design a protein that targets a protein within the human body has massively improved. We've improved
Right.
our ability to do that using AI. AI. So I think we're accelerating finding drugs. I think a really interesting part of AI is in patient care, and I have a really fantastic job. I speak to a lot of really interesting people, and speaking to a leading doctor in this area, he was talking about the problem today is that healthcare it's it's more it's more responsive. If somebody gets sick, then they go into hospital and they're treated. But the doctor said, imagine a world where I have 500 patients. I can come in the morning and open my computer. Each of those patients is wearing an Apple Watch or some kind of medical device, and I can look at the data coming from those patients. Using AI, it's going to tell me which ones of those patients are going to get, which ones of those patients are in danger of having are in danger of having heart problems.
Oh,
So
really?
moving
That's great.
yeah. And then the doctor would give the patient a call and say, I think you need to come into hospital. I'm seeing something in your biostats that's not quite right. So then we're talking about using AI to help become predictive to people's disease. Maybe they're spotting signs of cancer earlier or signs of heart disease. So I think the applications of AI to human health are just tremendous there.
That's a pretty interesting one, David. Now, David, like, what is your take on solution selling and its importance pertaining to the likes of, let's say, AI, data sciences, and life sciences? Like, how do these three categories fit together?
Absolutely. So I think solution selling is so important, and that's also consultative selling as well. And it's really coming back to what we were talking about understanding the different worlds, speaking the different languages, the business, the science, and the data science, and really working with clients to put in place solutions and data science solutions that really add value. I think it's important to say that clients don't always know exactly what they want. They have an idea. They think, hey, if I could apply AI here, can I get faster results? Can I get more insight? So there's a big kind of consultative solution approach of co-creating solutions with clients that is so important. And part of that is building trust, part of that is education as well. But I think the solution approach is very good in data science, but it has to be combined with a more of a product approach as well. And that is bringing solutions to clients quickly. In data science, this is so important. A lot of the projects that Quantori works with, we're working with scientists, and you would think because because somebody has a PhD, you'd think, well, they'd understand AI. Not at all. Somebody with a PhD in biology, AI is a black box. And when we're working with clients, we involve the end users in projects from day one. So when we're designing systems, when we're using when we're building the AI models and coming up with prompts, we're involving the end users, involving them in prompt engineering, involving them in conversations around understanding what the AI does. And that really makes it explainable AI, which is so important. I mentioned earlier there's a surprising amount of reluctance to use AI because of the concerns about the information that it produces. If it produces incorrect information and I go and use that, then what are the implications of that? So a lot of education around accuracy and precision, around the limitations of data science, the advantages of data science, but that can only be done by involving the end users in the conversations early, bring them
All
along on
right.
the journey so that when the solution is developed, then they're confident. They're confident that it's going to meet their needs. They understand prompt engineering if it's an LLM, and they understand where the application came from. So it's very much a solution selling process that we see as successful. And just add to what happens if you don't solution sell. And I speak to a lot of clients who work with vendors, and the vendor says, "Okay, I'll go and build this data science solution," and they bring it back to the client and deploy it, and the end users say, "This isn't what I wanted. This doesn't address the question that I did. I don't like the user interface." So,
Hmm.
that co-creation, that solution building is so important in this area.
I know. That is absolutely required, with respect to the co-creation. But when the client says, David, that he doesn't like the user interface, like what's your answer to him? I mean, it's a pretty chill one. It's not like anything, like heat of the moment. Like, how do you convince him that, okay, this is what, this is what it can be improved with? Or do you, again, bring a business analyst to, read, get the requirements from the client, or do you do any changes, following the, the agile methodology? Like, what exactly do you do in this process?
Yeah, definitely. So that's a good question. So I think the business analysis piece is really key, and that's the person who really understands what the end user is looking to do, how they want to interact. So that business analysis piece, that bridge between the end user and the people building the UI and the models is just so important. So that's key to get right. And one way that we ensure we deliver great user interfaces is to show mock-ups, to show rough user interfaces
Okay.
really early in the project, and say, "This is how it looks. This is a text box. Even this is a color scheme. These are where the buttons are." And then
Yeah.
yeah, and then clients can look at it and say, "Ah, that's great," or I want to change the color of that button. Some clients get really upset if the button is the wrong color, if they click on the wrong color. But so we involve them in that conversation, so they have input into it as we're building it, and then when it's delivered, we stand a much higher chance of success. There's always always some, well, there can be some feedback post production, but by engaging with clients early and getting them to engage in that user interface, it really does help.
Right. So, David, let's say, the client has told everything is fine, David, but only what I feel is that, the color has to be changed. Everything is fine. So, what is your reaction to that? What do you tell your team? Do you say that, fine, he has just not liked the color? It's not like, he didn't like the work, the day-to-day workflow of it. Like, do you tell those kind of things to your team, or, is it a pretty much different one?
No, I'm very open and honest. And I say, look, we do need to change the color. And I say that a successful application, and we all have experience of using applications, so we're using software applications in our personal life, on our iPhone. There's a number of applications we use at college and at work. We use a lot of different applications. I always say our goal is not to deliver a application that works. Our goal is to deliver an application that people are enthusiastic to use.
Indeed.
Something they enjoy using and they want to use that application. And things like the color of the button can be important, and we should address that. It is what it is. But yeah, and also training is important, and we do a lot of training and support around using these applications as well. But
Hmm.
it's really that user experience that's key. And that's the very hardest thing to get. To build something that works is easy. To build something people want to use yeah, that's a hard thing to do. But I think that's what drives success. When clients receive applications they're enthusiastic to use, they see the benefits. That's when the trust with Quantori starts to build, and we become that trusted partner and that partner on. So it's so the small. I suppose what I'm saying here is the small details are really important. I think.
Exactly, exactly. That is absolutely right. Because, the business requirement has to be matched. And yeah, I used to work in a previous organization, a UK-based company, and there my role was that of a QA. And, being a QA, I used to point out mistakes. I used to say, guys, the alphabet is not good. Or let's say, the color combination is not good. Then I think the developers used to get that sigh of relief. Okay, it's a pretty basic one. We'll do that later. But then, from my end, I used to not even do that. I used to even bring some major problems as well. So, so, I mean, when it comes to the QA, I mean, in your company, like is the QA, following any kind of a, let's say, an automative kind of a, an approach, or is he using the manual kind of an approach when he's doing the test cases?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in AI, especially and LLMs and Gen AI, the QA is very important. I mentioned earlier that having trust in the results that come back. So the field's moving quickly. So 18 months ago, when we built a Gen AI application for target identification, it was a manual QA process. So
Hmm.
we looked at the results and do they do they look okay from a high level? Are they because we're kind of talking about asking complex scientific questions. How does this protein interact with this protein, or what's a
Hmm.
target? What's a target for colon cancer? What's a new drug target for colon cancer that other pharmaceutical companies are not working on today? And the result will
Right.
come back with a lot of targets in the body, a lot of proteins, and sort of say these different proteins. So very complex information. So we had a look at it, and our PhDs had a look at it and say, does this make sense from a high level? And it did,
Hmm.
which was great. But then our clients actually did a thorough validation using PhD scientists, and they took the results and then manually researched the results in the literature to assess if they were accurate. So a very
Right.
time consuming, kept a very time consuming process. It achieved a 92% accuracy score, which was great. That's for this area of science, and that ability to recall accurately this scientific information was really high. But that was 18 months ago. Things are moving so quickly with the multi-agent approach that we're now building that validation capability into our solutions and products as well. So you can validate the results in real time when that comes back. And that's a game changer just in regards to speed of validation as well. Just a point on validation. It was really interesting working with this large company. We were working with the data science group and the oncology group and the heads of those groups, and we delivered this solution. The solution was very well received. It worked. The accuracy was a concern from the senior management. Interestingly,
Okay.
the senior management were concerned because they wanted to make sure that the this tool was steering their scientists in the right direction. Because obviously, if it
Hmm.
was steering them in the wrong direction, the consequences of that would be millions and millions of dollars in wasted experimentation. Because
All right.
the insights from the tool were going to lead to experimentation results. So it's really interesting. You would think that the validation would be more of the interest to the scientists or to the data scientists. But it was actually the senior management who were interested in validation. And this speaks to the different stakeholders involved in projects.
Right.
A lot of different stakeholders have a lot of different concerns about data science projects, and addressing those in the projects in conversations is so important.
Exactly, exactly. That completely sums up the point, David. Now, David, let's say, like I know you have, been completely supportive, selling the AI solutions and telling the customers to adapt the AI solutions. Let's say, David, there are challenges by, certain AI startup companies of, selling. the AI solutions to the customers. Like in that particular time, like what kind of support or let's say help do you, help out with, David? Like how do you, become a rock of support for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. I've had the opportunity to work with a number of AI startup founders, and it's a fascinating space. There's so many new AI companies that are being developed today, especially after LLMs. There are a lot of companies who are using those. And I think a lot of them are having success, and a lot of them are not having success as well. And when I work with these companies, I typically find that their founders are very technical. They may have done a PhD in something, or have a very technical background, and it's not uncommon to see them to be very excited about the technology, which is great. I think technology it is exciting, but I always talk to them and explain to them that clients don't buy exciting technology. Clients buy solutions to their problems, and they buy technology that helps them do something and has a clear benefit. At a very high level, like executive level, the technology has to have a return on investment.
Right.
If a client spends $1 million on technology, it wants to see an improvement in its business or cost savings of 3, 5, $10 million. So I work with startup founders, and what I hear often is, "Oh, I do the demo, and the client loves the technology. It's great technology, but then nothing happens afterwards, and they don't go and buy the technology." And I say, clients will, if your technology is good, clients will love it. But to commercialize AI technology, there's so many complexities involved. And one of them that we've talked about, I think, a lot is this multi-stakeholder aspect. So it's IT, data science, the business, legal, and procurement for companies to purchase the technology. You have to work with those different stakeholder groups. You have to demonstrate the business value of your technology and the advantage. But just because it has AI in it, why is it better than what the company is doing today? How will it help the company do things faster and quicker? So I spend a lot of time working with startup companies to help bridge that gap between technology and business problem, and to really educate them on how clients buy. And I think how clients buy has got much more complicated. 20 years
And
ago,
yeah,
20 years ago, there were less stakeholders. It was easier for clients to buy. Now there's a lot of complexity, and there's a lot of scrutiny as well. With the economic climate as it is, companies are not spending money on technology for the sake of it. They're they're
exactly.
looking at they're looking at technologies that can really give them a competitive advantage and make a difference. So my advice for any AI startup founder is really think about the business application of your technology. What business problem are you solving? Are you helping oil ships go through the ocean in a more effective way? Are you helping scientists develop drugs quicker and faster? Are you saving people 2 hours of their day in what they do? And if you are, then talk about that to your clients, because ultimately that's why clients will purchase your technology solution.
Brilliant, brilliant. That's a pretty insightful one, David. So, David, like, before we actually conclude our podcast initiative, like, David, all this while I was just talking about the technicalities of AI, your complete work or let's say contribution towards helping the companies and, helping the vendors sell the AI solutions. And again, writing books on AI. So, David, this time we'll take a pretty lighter approach, in the form of a rapid fire round. So, all your likes and interests, everything covered up in this. All right.
Sure.
Yeah. So, David, the first
Absolutely.
question. Yeah, awesome, David. So, the first question to you, David, like, what's your favorite football team?
It's got to be my home team back in not Nottingham, England. Not Nottingham Forest is my home team, and they won the European Cup many years ago, and they had an
Yes,
awful time, but they've recently just started to get much better. So it's great. It's great to be a Forest fan.
Absolutely. I mean, their rise, especially, beating all the, eminent teams in Premier League, it was a bit shocker for me. But they're a very good team, and I've read a lot about Nottingham Forest and about, about that era of Brian Clough. Brian Clough was one of the greatest managers of Nottingham Forest.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's amazing, David. So, David, what is that place? If I ever come to Boston, like, what is that place that you would recommend me to, travel for?
That's a really tough question. So Boston is an amazing city. It's very walkable. It has beautiful, beautiful scenes of the ocean, and just in and around Boston is really nice. Um, if you're interested in beaches, I would recommend Cape Cod as a place to go to. Just beautiful down there. Really kind of natural, great seafood, great beaches, very relaxed, very kind of holiday atmosphere. Just it's just a beautiful place to go.
Amazing, amazing, David. Now, David, I was just asking about Boston. Now, David, like, what is your favorite holiday destination around the world?
I would say that's really tough. I've had the luxury of traveling to many different countries. I've been to Asia, to Europe, and America, and I think each one has a different appeal. I think Thailand to me is just an amazing country.
Oh,
I love Thailand. The people are so friendly, so nice, so genuine. The food, if you like Thai food, is just out of this world. And then the country itself, ranging from mountains and tropical rainforests to gorgeous beaches, it's so diverse there. So I think Thailand is, if you're interested in diversity and experience, it's just an amazing place to go.
awesome. I mean, I've not been to Thailand, but I've been, to the airport, like, from Australia to India. Thailand is the, let's say, the transit in between, the layover
Oh,
airport. So I just got the chance there, probably in the future, might be.
yeah.
And yeah, it's an amazing thing, and I really love Thai food myself, and I've tried Thai food. It's awesome. It's all equivalency with Indian food with respect to the spices. So yes,
I did. I'll tell you a quick story. So I went to India as
sure.
well, and I love India, and I do a cooking class in whatever country I go to, and
Oh,
I did a Thai cooking class, and Thai food very easy to cook. You cook it in 5 minutes. Coconut milk and lemongrass and vegetables in there. 5-10 minutes, you have an amazing meal. And I spent the day with an Indian lady in a home kitchen having a one-on-one Indian class on cooking, and we cooked amazing Indian food. It was so good. It took 5 or 6 hours. It took a long time and very intricate, putting in the spices at various times during that cooking process. And I'll make you laugh. I came back to England at the time, and I can cook amazing Thai food. I can't cook Indian food very well at all. It's so complicated to cook. I don't know whether
I
that's
know.
just me, Akhil, but yeah. But I love both Indian food and Thai food.
Yeah, I mean, Indian food is again, different, David. It's not just one particular thing. It's like different regions, and everything is so diverse. Where if we go to a different state in India, the cuisine keeps on changing. So we, as Indians, we ourselves are very much always startled and very much curious to know, like, why is there a change in the food around in our country?
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. So David, now you just told about Indian food. Like, what is the favorite Indian food that you would like to, pick out from your, from the list?
Yeah, so been born in England. We have English Indian food in England, of course. So a chicken jalfrezi with a keema naan is
Okay.
always my go-to, and I'm going back to England next week, and I'll be having
Okay.
a chicken jalfrezi and keema naan. Absolutely. But when I was traveling in India, I had the fortune to travel to the north and to the south, and I experienced some of the variety of food I had. I just amazed the flavors, and I ate a lot of non-meat food, so a lot of vegetable-based food. Just the
Exactly.
flavors, yeah, the flavors and the different. It's absolutely amazing. So I think in a way I've been shortchanged with England American food,
Okay.
It's not as good as the Indian food itself, but
Oh
hopefully
man,
I'm
that
not.
really means a lot to us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going back to India and having some authentic Indian cuisine or something.
If you ever come to Hyderabad, you should try the biryani because the biryani is something, the Hyderabadi people are really mad about.
Really? Oh, that sounds great.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you should definitely try that. And yeah. So David, you just told me that you're a Nottingham Forest fan. So I mean, back in your childhood days in Nottingham, like what was your first memory of watching a football match?
That's a really good question. So I used to live about 2 miles away from Nottingham Forest football stadium. So I'd see the game days. So game days in the UK, soccer was really huge, and hundreds and thousands of people would just swarm into the stadium and go and watch the soccer. So my dad took me when I was very young. I forget how young, and just an amazing experience. The um, I, I don't know if you have you been to an English football game before?
I've not been to England at all, David. I've just been
You
to
haven't
the
been to.
London airport, and I mean, I used to live in US, so I mean, my transit was in London airport, so
Ah,
never
if
been
you
to
get
an
the
English
opportunity,
match.
if you get the opportunity to go, I'd definitely go. The fans are the most passionate fans I think anywhere in the world. The
That's for
singing,
sure.
the chanting, the support is just huge. And it's a fantastic environment and atmosphere to go. So at a very early age, I was exposed to that and really enjoyed those trips to go and watch a football games.
Awesome, David. That's pretty good, But again, my team is Manchester United, and they're not in a good position. I think Nottingham Forest has beaten us, and it's okay. It's part of life, and football always has ups and downs. But yeah, Manchester
Yeah,
United has to find its place. But let's see how we're gonna come up to that speed.
absolutely. Yeah.
All right, David. So, David, it was an absolute pleasure of, having, part of this podcast initiative and, sharing a lot of thoughts about, AI, your tenure of being the VP of, life sciences business at your company, Quantori, and about your company, Quantori, and deep, that interesting projects that you have dealt with, the way you have, handled the data scientists and how you're able to deal with the clients and help the vendors sell the AI solutions. Everything was summed up really well. And really, David, it was an awesome conversation, through this podcast initiative. Thank you so much again.
Well, thank you for the invite to be here, and thank you for your enthusiasm and to what you're doing here. I think you bridging the gap between IT and just people out there, having people like me and other speakers to share our thoughts is so important. And I'm so pleased that you're shining a light on IT and AI. It has so much potential. And thank you yourself
Absolutely.
for just being part of this exciting journey. And wishing you much success as well in your career as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David. That really means a lot to me. And, I really feel my only objective is that, every industry, let's say, the film industry, sports industry is having, a limelight. Even the IT engineers also have it because the IT engineers really work a lot and, bring such interesting cutting edge kind of ideas to the table. And that voice has to be heard. So that was what I, came about with. And that's my promise.
Absolutely. No, that. I think that's a great. I think that's a great mission, and absolutely, there's an audience for that as well. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, David. And yeah, so listeners, before we actually conclude our podcast episode, so it was such an absolute pleasure to be talking to you. So I would just again say that we will be back with another podcast episode with another industry leader very soon. So on this note, this is your host Akhil Navluri signing off. We would be back with another eminent industry leader. So on this note, this is your host signing off with with flying colors. So till then, take care. Keep listening. Stay tuned. Goodbye. Thank you and au revoir. Thank you.